Hello everyone, it's Sonia McDonald here from Leadership HQ, and as you know, most Tuesdays and Thursdays at 12, I have the honour of speaking with some of the most remarkable leaders, founders, CEOs across Australia and New Zealand. And today I have the wonderful honour of talking with the CEO and co-founder of CommitWorks, Paul Moynagh, and I love his name. We just found out that we're both from Wellington, New Zealand, so it's amazing how small the world is. And I love what he's doing, because I love the fact that they're across 6 continents. They've now got 50 staff. 45% of them are women, which is just awesome. I love that. And you work in a space that I'm really passionate about, particularly in the mining and the engineering construction space. So welcome, Paul, to our live stream, the Leadership Channel. So welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sonia. It's great to be here.
No, thank you. And tell us a little bit about your journey and how you started CommitWorks.
Kiwis in Queensland, it's a good thing, isn't it? So, I've done quite a few different things in my life, but I guess I've had two kind of core things traveling along. One is kind of innovation and how to build product, and another bit is really kind of continuous improvement and business improvement. And so a lot of my career I've spent in consulting and business improvement, and I spent a lot of time in blue collar and white collar industries, basically trying to get frontline teams to work together so that they can have safer, more productive shifts. And so, I did my master's many years ago in quality management and business improvement, and so that's kind of the TQM, if you like, in the old days. Six Sigma, Lean. Done a whole lot of work with management operating system consultants and over the years. And so, one thing we kind of saw over and over and over again was that people kind of, you want people to engage with things on whiteboards and to get them to stand in front of a whiteboard and to say, this is my plan, this is what we're going to do. To commit to that is really, really important. And but whiteboards are pretty hard to integrate with, and so the kind of information, it's quite manual, and people get a bit upset, a bit annoyed with it. And so we'd find, I remember standing there in front of a guy, his name was Softy. He was an under manager on an underground coal mine. We just spent 12 hours working underground at night shift. And he's like, Paul, I really like what you guys are trying to do here, but no one's going to keep filling this whiteboard out when you guys leave, right? And I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, I mean, hard enough to find a texter after a 12-hour shift. And you're asking the guy who's covered in coal, who's, struggled with some pretty difficult underground situations. And you're asking him to go and to record his performance or her performance on a whiteboard at 6 a.m. after a 12-hour shift. It's just hard. And so it got me thinking, I mean, what you want this to happen, but the reality of it is it's just really hard to make it happen over and over again. And so when you go onto a lot of mine sites, you'll see whiteboards that just haven't been filled in for months, and stuff that's just not done. And so I used to be a consultant that would design and build and facilitate and make all these things happen, but we basically came to the conclusion that really there's got to be a better way. And so I came across this product called Fusion. My business partner Alex Retzlaff had been building it for Anglo's Moranbah North mine, and we were working up their sister mine at Grasstree, and I looked at it and went, this looks really good. The consultants I was working with, nah, it looks like competition. We're into whiteboards. Don't want to borrow that. And I and Alex, got together and had a few good conversations and decided to sort of get into business together. And that was where CommitWorks came from. So the system that he'd built replaced these whiteboards with big screens in public places, so you didn't have to go and draw your line on the graph. And it made the plan that the guys would put together for the shift, made that part of the whiteboard, the big screens, and it made KPIs possible and all that. It was all just drag and drop, and so made it much easier to get that short-term plan together for the frontline teams, and then to go and give that to the frontline team to go and do, and then they would commit to it. And then you go off and do short interval control through the shift, and then at the end of the shift you talk about what you did and how you went against it, and then instead of drawing lines on whiteboards, you punched actuals into a touch screen. So you still had all of the engagement of whiteboard kind of tools, but it was integrated to a plan, and it was also really kind of tactile and visible and physical. So that's where we started back in 2012, 13. And we've just kind of been building the product out and selling it to different clients around the world, and building a team of enthusiastic people that believe like we do, have seen the kind of benefits, and really enjoying the journey. It's heaps of fun.
So how long have you had the company now for?
So Alex started writing the software in 2011 for Moranbah North, and Alex and I sort of met each other in late 2012, and then we set the company up in its current kind of org structure in 2013. So 7 years or so.
You've done so great in 7 years now, at 50 staff and 6 countries, and
yeah, thanks. It's
really proud of yourselves.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because if you looked at our forecasts 5 years ago, we'd be $1 billion company by now, but we're not quite there yet. But that's what we're off. That's what we're off to do, to try to make us follow the kind of Atlassian WiseTech. We've built building that kind of team. The diversity is funny. One of our directors is a guy called Andy Gregg, who used to run Bechtel's mining and metals business.
Yeah.
And he had 110,000 people working for him at one time. He was in our office the other day, said they were turning over $2 million an hour at one point. And I said, how the hell do you run a business like that? And he said there were 2 things that helped him to do it. One of them was he has this conversation with people about all of his direct reports, and he expects people to have a commitments and expectations conversation. What are your expectations of me? What are my expectations of you? And what can you commit to? What can we each commit to?
Yeah.
So he would do that with all of his team. And the other thing was a diverse team. So the diversity of team gives you lots of different perspectives, and the commitments and expectations conversation gives you this alignment between leader and team, and those 2 things together meant that he could keep 110,000 people all around the world together somehow. So
I want to add that to this post around. I love those 2 questions. Like, what are your expectations? Like, my expectations of you, your expectations of me, what you can commit to. So that's pretty powerful.
Yeah, it's important. There's a little video on on YouTube with me and him and a couple of others talking about it. And he talks about, there's really kind of 3 options. If you've got most people will have expectations of each other. And most of the time those expectations aren't expressed. So if they're not expressed and you still have them with people, it's highly unlikely that those expectations will be met. And if they are, it's lucky. And so there's frustration on both sides. The person who has those expectations isn't getting what they want, and the person whose expectation isn't meeting the expectations feels that and doesn't like it very much. So that's one way, and that's we all probably agree. The other way, that's not very good. So the other way is, second way is that the expectation is stated, but it's kind of said, this is my expectation of you, and it's kind of pushed down from above.
Yeah.
So like, and that your best you're likely to get there is compliance.
Yeah.
You don't get real engagement from that kind of approach. And then the third way is this way that Andy talks about, where the expectation is expressed, but the commitment is negotiated between the 2 people, and so there's a conversation. That does, and just simply a one piece of paper, white piece of paper, A4, you write down expectations, and the other person writes down their commitments, and that's your contract. Quite simple. So what he sees about us as a business, and he sees our product as kind of engaging workplaces in commitment conversations. So there's at the weekly planning level. So we've taken all this information from mine planning systems and maintenance systems and project tools and all that kind of stuff. And people have put a plan together across all the departments for everyone on the site. And then there's what people often call a weekly commitment meeting. So everyone gets together and they go, all the people that are going to be involved in the work today, that are leading that work, are able to sit there and go, we commit to achieving this plan. This is a reasonable plan. And then that plan, same plan inside our tool, gets turned into daily plans and shift plans. And those shift plans, there's a conversation between the frontline leader and their crew to say, hey guys, this is what we've got to do today. Is that reasonable? Do we need to make any change? And so all the time there's this kind of commitment. So expectation, commitment. So then everybody goes to work in the morning or the night, whatever it is, with a well committed plan that they believe that they can achieve. So then you can track that. You can go, how are we going against it through the shift? And at the end of the shift, you can go, hey, 12 hours ago, we thought we could do this, and here's what we did. What do we learn from that? What problems do we have? What issues can we resolve? And so then you can actually have at the supervisor and crew level, at the superintendent and the coordinator level, at the management GM to the rest of the business level, you can have an expectations, and you can have a continuous improvement conversation. Yeah. If you can't get that expectation right at the front, the commitment right at the front, then it kind of doesn't matter what people have done. You can't compare them.
Yeah.
Because there's never a good enough plan. So you're into the HR world, Kolb's learning cycle, theory, practice, reflect, right? In theory, this is what we're going to do. In practice, we did something else and we're going to reflect on it. That's how you learn as an adult. You just go round and round and round that circle, and the plan, do, check, act, and you get better and better, right?
Yeah.
So that's how it works.
And it's, I love and I'm going to check out that interview on YouTube. Is it on YouTube? On your website?
Yeah, it's on our YouTube channel. Commit Works.
Okay, I'll put the link into this as well after the live stream, because I love the language you're using around expectations and commit, because we facilitate a lot of workshops with mining companies and with engineering and construction companies. And the one thing that we're very much around is, again, in the workshops, what are the expectations, but what are you going to commit to? And you actually have to sign, similar to what you're saying. We're very much around not holding any interventions where it's just all of us getting together and having a bit of a chin wag about expectations, but actually being accountable and committing to it. And I always say that to anyone that we work with. Hey, we are really committed to partnering with you, to making sure that you're committed to making this go into action, not just kind of saying it. So I think what you're doing as an organization is so cutting edge. It's so wonderful to see that you're actually making an impact in these industries. And as you said, I know after a 12-hour shift, it's the last thing I'd want to be doing but it just makes it so much easier for these leaders and people to commit to these. And I love that. So hence, that's why it's called Commit Works. I love that.
Yeah. So it's funny because all these things kind of came together, right? I'd had this conversation with Andy about commitments and expectations, and then one of our guys saw this paper someone had written that said, successful organizations are driven by people that make commitments to each other and then deliver on them. And I was like, wow, that's really simple but quite profound. And then but the problem is it's really hard to do that in most workplaces because people don't have the visibility of the work that they're going to do. They might have a long-term plan, but what you're going to do this week you can't manage what you're going to do this week on a shift or in 2 hours. You have to get into the specifics. It's and it's often the case that the little things that supervisor said to another supervisor, you need to get this done today, because if we don't, then we'll have no production tomorrow. If you don't have those conversations and they're not visible to people, then you get held up by 100 little things every day, and that produces really big impacts on production. So we've seen in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Argentina, and South Africa, we've seen people kind of go into doing some work with us, and they've got lots of variability and lots of unpredictability in their work every day. Their performance is kind of really lumpy. And we see, within a month or so of implementing the software, and we spend a lot of time with people actually helping them to integrate into day-to-day work. We see the peak of performance stays about the same, but the actual the variability around that peak shrinks. So you go from like this big variability to low variability, mostly around the peak. So if you drew the graph, it's kind of like lumpy, and then it comes up and it's kind of not as lumpy. And so we've probably never done a project that's had less than 15% improvement in direct production. And we've had up to 51% at one operation within a couple of months of production. And that's just because the day-to-day, one of my consulting friends calls it the reduction in reasonably foreseeable screw-ups.
I like that. Could that be an acronym? Like, can you make that into the R in?
Yeah. Usually there's an F in there instead of an S, but it's okay. We don't.
I don't mind the F in there. So at the moment, are you, in terms of the software, is it predominantly with mining and construction engineering? Are you in other industries as well?
Yeah, so we're predominantly in mining. We've just recently done an aluminium smelter. So that's going really well, and they're pretty enthusiastic. We've done a lot of workshops and wash plants and that kind of thing in the work we've done. So we work kind of adjacencies to mining, if you like, but on mine sites. One of the projects we did was the Grosvenor construction project. So the guys they found that project was getting behind, and they were like, how do we know how to fix this? Well, we know how to run operations, so why don't we apply the Fusion product to the Grosvenor construction project? And then they managed to bring it in under budget and on time, $100 million under budget, actually. Apparently. So I think that just the simple kind of idea here is that it doesn't really matter what kind of work is being done. If it's reasonably plannable in advance, if you can kind of go, this is what we're trying to achieve this week, and then if we do all these things, then we'll get to that. So like a construction project or a mining project or a rail implementation, day of operations kind of stuff, then I think we can help.
Brilliant. Okay, I might have some people that I could talk to you about that would be really interested.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah. I mean, it's not many things. I think this probably sounds a bit arrogant, but it's not many things I think you can do in a mining organization which cost as little as what we do, but produce as much result. We get payback period in less than a week generally.
That's brilliant. I'm so proud of you.
But the hard thing is for everyone to believe it, right? So as someone building a business, in that early part of the kind of product adoption curve, it's hard to go from we're getting results here to everybody going, this is really on, everybody needs to get on this. So that's where we're kind of at the moment. We're getting to the point where people are going, they're looking around and going, you doing it? Oh, you are doing it. Oh, you're doing it too. Oh, and this is working for you? It's working. Yeah, okay. let's do it. So we're finding we're getting that kind of momentum now, which will help us charge off into the future.
Yeah, I think with anything like this, especially when there is a new system that's been implemented, is again that change process. You know, you're kind of then having to, once it's implemented, go through that kind of change leadership or management process where you get that buy-in internally of people actually using the system. Because people tend to resist that stuff. It's like, oh no, a new system, you know. And the thing is, when they start, as you said, when they say, oh, you're using it, oh, and it's working for you, it's like, oh, okay. So when they actually see the reward and benefits of it outweigh the pain of doing it, then people tend to do it. So just got to hear someone's actually said, sounds like a great system. So yeah, made a comment. So yeah.
So just on that, Sonia, the one of the things Andy, a lot of my philosophy theories on things now come from him. It's good to have mentors like that. He said he was responsible for implementing Six Sigma at Bechtel at the end of his tenure there, and he said what was really important there was that it was crystal clear from above that there was an expectation that everybody get on board with the Six Sigma thing, but that's not enough. Very short. What the top-down expectation does is it carves out enough time for people to give it their attention for a period of time. What needs to happen really soon after that is they need to, in that experience that they have with it, they need to start to feel like, hey, this is easier. Actually, when I do this, it's better. It makes my life better. And if you don't get the top-down kind of, this is much, you need to do this, we really expect it of you, and this is easier. If you don't get those two things working together, then it doesn't matter how much attention you put from above, people will just give up on it, which is what happens with most of these kind of whiteboard systems long term. So that the bottom up has to become easier, and usability and the way you kind of implement that with people. We're very there's a theory called minimum viable adoption that we apply. So we try to get the minimum amount of the product working with people as quick as we can, so they start to feel some benefit. They go, oh, actually, it works. This is really good, and then you build on that. You can build on that if you try to get all of it adopted and start, and people are like, oh, it's too much. I can't cope. So.
Because change is hard. I mean, change the brain from a neuroscience perspective. We do go. It's like learning new habits is hard for the brain. But it's I always say it's really important, as you said, when you said like the bottom up, top down, but also having those change champions. So having those people kind of throughout an organization that have buy-in, and then they actually are advocating for it. Someone just said, Paul's just said, because I really want to talk to you about what leadership means to you.
Yeah.
But before we talk about that, Paul's asked, has it been hard to convince the mining industry to change?
Yeah, that's kind of, yes, it has. But like any change, any new thing goes through an adoption curve, right? So you never, there's an old guy called Seth Godin, he's in marketing.
Yeah, I love his books,
Yeah, so he's a smart guy. He says that no one ever sells a new product to the middle of the adoption curve. You can't sell this new thing to the early majority or late majority. Can't do that. You have to start by selling it to innovators and early adopters. And so the hard thing, I think, is you can find early adopters and innovators, but you've got to support them to sell it to their organization. So where we've had success early on, and I think this is probably true for any early stage business, is that you've got to provide air cover, and you've got to give the guys on site. We've really been helped by people like Lani at Moranbah North, by people like James at Oceana, that Andrew Harris at Olympic Dam, these kind of guys that have just gone, this is a really good idea, and they've had enough influence in their businesses to to push it through and make it happen. Without those guys, you just wouldn't get any action. So I think change is difficult for any industry. Mining is tough, but at another level, it's kind of easier because most things work site by site. So if you find a really good innovative person on a site, then you can get things moving quite quickly. Just finding those innovators and looking after them is the key, I think.
That is the key, I think, for many of us. So I think he wrote a really good book. Was it called The Purple Cow? Is it called
yeah. Alongside All Marketers and Liars and a few other kind of good books he's written.
Yeah, he's actually he's really interesting. So leadership. I mean, it's been a really challenging time for many of us as leaders. Yeah. I mean, what does leadership mean to you? And also, there's another part to the question in terms of you being the best leader you can be during this time. I mean, how have you, as a leader with CommitWorks, how have you navigated all the challenges I don't know, have you had many challenges during this time with what's going on around the world?
It's a really interesting, what does leadership mean to me? So maybe I just use COVID as an example, topical. And just the beginning of March, I just got back from Toronto, been traveling around, been to a big conference, and I got back and, we'd heard about this COVID thing and it was kind of on the news and, you've got to watch out for it, but it became really real. I remember having a management team meeting with my team, and I just got to New Zealand for a friend's 50th and sitting in my parents' house watching, talking on like this, and it was like, we need to take this seriously. And my team was telling me, we need to take this seriously. And I'm like, okay, we do. Okay. So what does that mean? And we basically decided in that meeting that we were going to shut the office, drive everybody home. We've already got a team in the Ukraine. We've always had guys in the Newcastle office. And so we've always worked remotely as much as possible. Yeah. So, it's not, working remotely is not a really new thing for us. So we were able to get on with that quite quickly. But from a leadership perspective, I think I took a lot of input from my team about how serious it was. And I think that they probably got me to act, or us to act, earlier than I probably would have if it were just up to me, which is good. But at the end of the day, I'm open to that input. I don't know everything, and I'd been, flying all over the world and probably not up to speed with the vibe of the place. But there's, so I think you got to be open to input from other people. From a kind of leadership perspective, I took a stance, which was never waste a crisis, So, a friend of mine and I were driving over to Featherston in my mum's car, and we're sitting there going, well, okay, so if we can't, large part of the way we would go to site and sell our product was by going on site and doing a discovery session and really understanding what's going on site. Well, if you can't get to site, then what do you do? So we've had to rethink the way we sell to our customers. We've had to rethink the way we implement. We've had to, we were working on these things, but we were forced to just like bring a whole lot of stuff that we were going to do forward and just do it right now. And it's just amazing to sort of say to everyone and, agree, this is something we need to do, and for everyone to just get behind it. And, within a couple of weeks, we were running implementation projects with a smelter, with a underground mine, a couple of underground mines. We're running them completely remotely with nobody going to site, just like we are now, training people, setting up their system, making it all work completely remotely, and then supporting them afterwards. And what's been really interesting to see over time is that only a couple of our sites had to shut down. One of them, in Argentina, had to shut down completely, and so they went from getting best months ever to nothing for a while, and then when they came back on, they ramped up really quickly back to their best months ever, and we were able to support them through that kind of journey. And there's probably quite a lot of doubt, if you stop doing everything and the whole wheels are falling off and your control rooms, just no one can even get there, helping them to kind of come back and get on with their work again on the wrong time zone in Spanish, is kind of been challenging. But I think the thing that everyone's bought into the vision, of this kind of commitment idea. So when we have conversations about it, people get pretty pumped about what we're doing, and so they want to do a good job. I don't know what it would be like to lead a company that's not like that. I think that would be pretty hard, but I'm very lucky to have that, I think, in Commitworks. And so and I think, really what we try to do when we go on sites is to help to bring that kind of thing to sites by helping them get more organized on a day-to-day basis. And that's probably one of the kind of underlying things, is making it clear what we're going to do every day and then going off and doing it. We do that ourselves with Jira and Slack and all those Smartsheet and all these kind of tools for ourselves. And then when we go and do work on a mine site or on a site, then we're bringing those same kind of tools to the site to help them get clear and set expectations and deliver on their commitments. It's kind of, so it's almost like we practice what we preach, I think.
That's super cool. I mean, I love the fact you are making a difference. You're making a difference, and I know that it sounds like the people that are working with you know and see that, and that's why they're so aligned and so passionate about what they do. So I am a bit cognizant we're at 32 minutes.
Okay.
So, I know it's good. It's like it always happens this way. It always happens. We always go over. And Paul's actually kind of made a few. I might connect you and Paul, because he's actually asked a few questions and he's making some really great comments here. And also, when we jump offline, there's a few people that I'd love to help you with as well, to connect you with.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Yeah.
Well, that's what it's about. Leadership's about how we can all inspire and help each other, and I think that's really important. But what would be your advice, like looking at your journey, and that obviously you and Alex have started this business, and from where 2013 to where you are today, it's been an incredible journey for you. I mean, what advice for people that are watching this interview and this live, what advice would you give to them if they're kind of thinking about, I don't know, starting a business, or they've got an idea? I mean, what would you say to your younger self? Or if you could go back in time, I mean, is there any advice or guidance you'd give people?
I think it'd be a couple of things. One of them is work with someone you can really trust. Like Alex and I have had lots of kind of tension, but we trust each other, and we know that the good tension, because you kind of, I think it should be over here and he thinks it should be over here, and so it ends up somewhere in the middle. But and the middle is probably righter than it would have been on either side. So I think work with someone you can trust. And business can be quite difficult, and there's lots of financial things, and things change, and you want to know that the person you're working with isn't going to do the wrong thing. And I think a lot of businesses, small business, early stage businesses, fail because there's a failure of trust somewhere in it. You can write all the kind of shareholder agreements and all that kind of stuff you like, but at the end of the day, you got to be able to work with the person and trust them. So that's one thing. The second thing is do something that you think is worthwhile. Another Seth Godin thing was like startups are like a lottery, but the tickets are a couple of $100,000, right? So I did. I worked for a couple of years at, I kind of did this in between working on consulting, and I made 30 to 50 grand a year for a while, making this kind of get this off the ground. And so you've got to be doing something that you think is really important to be able to put up with the hardship of starting a business. It's not easy, and so it's really not easy. And we're 7 or 8 years down the track now, and we still have big ups and downs and so I think that to put up with that, it's not about getting rich. And like a friend of mine, I was sitting in a friend's office once, and he had a book and said, Eric here, the first 20 years. And I was like, 20 years? He's only 45 or something like that. I was like, you've been doing this since you're 25. And there's this sort of saying, which is success, overnight success takes 20 years. It's 20 years to become an overnight success, and I think that's actually the truth of it.
Yeah,
The idea, go and found a business, raise some money, and exit it in 3 to 5 years is just garbage. It doesn't happen like that. Safety culture's been around for 15 years now. Canva's been around for a similar amount of time. These businesses that go places stick with it, and they would only stick with it if they thought it was meaningful and worthwhile work. So don't work on something that's not meaningful is my advice.
Yeah, I think meaning is everything. I mean, I think even when you have those ups and downs, and I've been saying this, I've had my company now for 14 years. There's been so many highs and lows, but when you stick to why you do what you do and the meaning behind it, it really helps you overcome it. So I'm getting some really great comments here, but unfortunately we're going to have to jump off because we're nearly at 40 minutes. But it's been such an honor to talk to you today. And if there's anything we can do at Leadership HQ to help you as well, and also reach out to Paul. His details, I put his bio and his details in the live information. So make sure you reach out to Paul if you can help. And I just love what you're doing. Yeah, I'll send you a copy of my book, or we must actually meet for coffee because we're actually only each other. I'll give you a copy of my book, but there's a book that was recommended to me on another live called Small Giants. I think you really love as well. So I'll send the link. Another co-founder and CEO of another company, and he worked for Atlassian, mentioned this book, and I've started reading it, and it's brilliant. I think you'd get a lot out of it as well. So it sounds like you're doing some really great stuff. So I'm so proud of you, and I have been following you, and so we definitely will catch up for that coffee now that we're only not very far from each other here in Brisbane. But for everybody that's listening, please stay safe, stay kind, stay courageous. And if you'd love to find out more about the Leadership Channel, reach out to us at Leadership HQ. Or if you'd love to find out more about CommitWorks, reach out to Paul and his team, because I know that they're actually making a massive difference in the mining and engineering space. So thank you so much for everybody for listening to us today. And it was such an honor speaking with you today as well, Paul.
Thank you, Sonia. It's been I've had a lot of fun. So I probably talked too much. I should have asked you some questions.
You were great. You were fantastic. They always go to it's just everyone keeps saying to me, "Oh, Sonia, but we want to keep it to half an hour." And I go, "Oh, it always goes over." So it's all good because we always have so much. I could talk for hours with you. So no, thank you.
Yeah, that's great. All right, I look forward to that coffee.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Sonia. Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.